and lengthy activities. Sometimes we do that in the classroom and we talk in English. Is that a listening activity for the students? And then we have grammar-based questions in classroom, which of course we deliver in English. The teacher is speaking in English. And then the third is we have some vocabulary development questions in the classroom. We talk about words, their meanings, how do they occur in a sentence. And the teacher is definitely speaking in English when she talks about this in the classroom. And then another situation could be, okay, Jyoti Bharti says none of the above. So when you say none of the above, I would want others to respond as well, because we are all English teachers, whether we have started teaching in English or not, but we have been teachers. And that's why we are here. So Jyoti said none of the above. So none of these situations is a listening activity for a student. But remember, the teacher is speaking in English when she does all of these activities, all of these things. And this is what a teacher usually does in the classroom when she speaks in English. And then there are follow-up questions. Sarika ma'am, in case somebody is writing in the chat box and I'm not able to see it because I'm sharing the screen, please let me know. I could just see one answer
For
from
sure, ma'am.
Jyoti ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And also the teacher prepares students for listening, for speaking. The teacher says a word and she wants the student to repeat the word. Or she is talking about she recites a poem. Is that a listening activity? Think about it. Because all of us agree that the teacher speaking in English in a classroom is a listening activity for students. Okay, I'll leave you thinking about this and maybe we could come back to this. Okay, Jyoti says yes. Jyoti says yes. When the teacher prepares for speaking, I guess that is what you mean, Jyoti. That is a listening activity for students. Okay, I hope you're able to see. Okay, now I have a list of questions for which you could respond by saying yes, sort of, no, or not really. Okay, so I'll read one question in case you're not able to read it properly. I'm sure you would. 4 students, one in each corner of the room. Now, these are different situations, and we are trying to understand what is a listening practice. There are 4 students, and each student is in one corner of the room. They are reading a list of their 10 favorite food and drinks. They have a list of their favorite foods and drinks. The remaining students move to each corner in any order they want. There are 4 students who are reading the list, and the remaining students move around in the classroom and go to any corner, but they go to each corner. They listen and they write down each reader's list. Is this a lot of listening practice? You may please share your responses. Or in case you don't want to write, you may open up your mic and respond. Okay, Pooja says yes, this is a listening activity and gives a lot of listening practice. Nikita says yes. Thank you for response. Neetu Bala says yes. Thanks for responding. Naveen Kumar says yes. Meenu says yes. Madhuri, thank you. She also says yes. So most of us agree that this is a listening activity which provides a lot of listening practice. Okay, Jyoti, thank you. So the next situation is the teacher describes a scene, a park with trees, people, and benches. Students draw the scene as the teacher describes it. Now, is this an activity which provides students with a lot of listening practice? Yes. Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, Meenu, for responding. Thank you, Manju. Thank you, Nitika. Thank you, Monica. So, all of you agree that this is an activity which provides a lot of listening practice. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, Madhuri. So, you still not think this is a sort of thing or not really? Okay. Now, next in, students in pairs do a vocabulary matching activity on a handout. You give a handout to the students, and students sit in pairs, and then they do a vocabulary matching exercise, the matching thing. The vocabulary comes from the audio text that they just listened to. So you played an audio, and then you give a handout to the students, and they do a vocabulary matching activity. Does this provide a lot of listening practice? Jyoti says yes. Neetu says yes. Okay, Madhuri says yes. Okay, this is a listening practice, but does it provide a lot of listening practice? Think of what the students are actually doing. I'm just leaving you with things to ponder about. Since you've had a session of listening, so you have an idea of what listening means and what kind of listening activities would be there. Now, the next activity, students listen to a song several times. They have a copy of the lyrics with some of the words missing. You play a song to the students, you give a copy of the lyrics to the students, and then the lyrics have some words missing in that. So the students fill in the words. Is this a lot of listening practice for the students? Yes, sort of. No, not really. What do you say? Okay, yes. Naveen Kumar says yes. Okay, the next situation, the next activity. The teacher tells the class about something that happened on the way to school that morning. The teacher was coming to the school and something happened on her way. And the teacher tells the class about it. Of course, in the target language, which is English for us. So, is this a lot of listening practice? What do you say? Remember, you all agreed that when the teacher is speaking in English in the classroom, it is a listening activity for the students. Okay, Pragya says yes. Thank you, Pragya. Praveen Kumar says yes.
Madam, are you asking for the response for the fourth activity?
Sixth activity, when the teacher comes back from the comes to the school and something had happened on the way. Am I audible? Is my voice clearly audible? Okay, Meenu says yes. Thank you, Pragya. Neetu Bala says yes. Thank you. So I'm reading the activities. I'm reading the points to use in case somebody has an internet issue and is not able to read the situations properly. So that's why I'm reading it out to you. Okay, the next one is after students listen to an audio, the teacher asks the whole class comprehension questions. Students volunteer answers, and that's it. You play an audio to the classroom, and then you ask comprehension questions based on that audio to the students. Okay, Neetu says this is yes, a listening activity with a lot of listening practice. Thank you, Manju. Thank you. I would want you to keep these situations in mind when we proceed further. Okay, Naveen says sort of. Naveen, would you like to respond? Why did you say sort of? That's an interesting bit, in case you want to.
Because you are saying that a lot of listening practice. When the audio
Mm-hmm.
is when the audio is played,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the student listen
Okay.
that, and
Mm-hmm.
the audio played when the audio played repeatedly, then it is called a lot of listening practice. But a one-time audio clip cannot be a lot of listening
Okay.
practice. It may
Okay.
be a one-time listening practice, but not a
Thank you,
lot of
Naveen.
listening practice. It's a listening
Thank.
practice, but not a lot
Mhm.
of listening practice.
Okay. Thank you, Naveen. So what I understand is that Naveen thinks that if the time span of exposing the students to sounds is more, that it is a lot of listening practice. Otherwise, it's not. I mean, if you play this audio just once, it is not a lot of listening practice. So that's a sort of listening practice, but not a lot of. Thank you, Naveen, for clearing this. So now another set of questions. I I hope you kept these situations in mind. Just think of these situations, go through these situations, keep these in mind because the next set of questions would be revolving around it. So the next one, is reading comprehension different from listening comprehension? We have question in our examinations in which there's a paragraph given to the students and then there are comprehension questions based on that. And the students have to answer that. And then you just had a situation on which Naveen responded that an audio is played, and then the students answer questions or comprehension questions based on that. And there's also a situation in which the teacher asks comprehension questions based on the listening audio. Is this different or is this same? Would anyone like to respond? Think about it. And then we will move to the next situation. Okay, Jyoti says different. Jyoti, would you like to talk about why is it different? How is it different? Anyone else? Reading comprehension, is that similar to listening comprehension? Because we are asking the same kind of questions. Remember, we are checking the comprehension of the students, whether they have understood or not. Okay, now we move to the next level. Can we use the same text or same questions list for both reading and listening? We have the same text which we give for reading comprehension, and we have the same set of questions for both listening and reading comprehension. Can we do that? Okay, listening requires more attention. I forgot the name, I could not get the name, but somebody from the participant said listening requires more attention. So, do you want to say that reading does not? Reading does not require a lot of attention? I'm just throwing questions to you so that you think about what listening is. Listening is active process. Thank you, Monica. So now again, throw back a question to you. Is reading not an active process? Remember, both reading and listening are receptive skills. These are not productive skills. Okay, somebody from the participant said it is. It is an active process. Did you mean to say reading is an active process? Thank you, Neetu. Neetu Bala. Okay, Neetu Rani, yes. So both of these are active processes. Poonam Jha says yes. So, are you saying yes to the same text questions list? Silent reading is not active sometimes, Monica says that. Would someone like to respond to that? Silent reading is not active. Okay, Neetu says that's not true. Thank you, Neetu. Neetu Bala says, but it requires some level of attention. Thank you for setting your minds up onto thinking. Okay, I'm sure the others who are not responding are at least thinking, no, reading is active in any mode. Thank you. Somebody said that I could not get the name. So, reading is active in any mode. Thank you for sharing that. I hope everybody is thinking about what reading and listening is. Okay, now this is a typical listening activity. This is what we do even in ASL, if any one of you know what ASL is. Reading is always in active mode. Thank you, Leena. Okay, so I have another situation for you. Students listen to a complete audio text and afterwards answer comprehension questions posed by the teacher. Okay, this model is probably based on how we use written text for reading comprehension. Would you see the similarity? We play a text and then we give questions based on comprehension to the students. And this model is, I think, based on the fact that we use written text for reading comprehension. We have paragraphs for reading, and then we ask questions based on comprehension, understanding of the text. Okay, now there's an article over here. Read the article and answer the question. This is what the question says in a question paper. But listening texts, unlike the written word, do not remain unmoving in front of our eyes. So I think that is what somebody in the participant list said, that listening requires more attention because the text, okay, assessment of speaking listening skills, that is right. ASL is assessment of speaking listening skills. But what we are trying to do right now is understand listening from a variety of perspectives, what listening actually is. So, unlike reading comprehension, in listening comprehension, the words do not remain in front of our eyes. When we read a text, the words are there. We can go back to the words. But in listening comprehension, we do not have words in front of our eyes. We have listened it with our ears and then it's gone. The student doesn't have the opportunity to go back. The words are there in our ears in real time. So students don't have the opportunity to go back, review a sentence, or look up a word in the dictionary. When we read, we can always open our dictionaries and then look up the meaning of the word. Answering comprehension questions after an audio is mostly a test of memory. Now think about it. When you play an audio text to your students and then you ask them questions based on comprehension, it is a test of memory, is it not? Is the same text that you've given for reading comprehension, and you test your students on comprehension, the same questions, except the fact that the paragraph is no longer in front of the eyes of the students. So, what the student answer, what is the skill being tested for students? How do they memorize? What is the thing that they remember?
Test of
Perhaps it
memory,
is that.
test of their memory.
Thank you, Jyoti. It's a test of memory. Perhaps it is a test of memory. The kind of audio listening activities that we do with our students. The focus is on outcome, on product rather than process. The process is listening, but the answer or the test is on the product. What we remember, it is not a test of listening, it is not a test of the process, and it ignores the specific difficulties students may have experienced during the actual listening phase. You won't even know with the help of this test whether the students have actually been able to listen or if they have had any problem listening to the text that you played, the audio that you played. So this is just a perspective helping you think about your understanding of listening. Okay. So word stress, strong and weak forms of words, word contractions and articles or monosyllabic words can be given for filling blanks. Please think about it. If you're not giving reading comprehension questions after listening audio text, this is what you could give as a listening exercise. Comprehension is a test of memory, but if you give exercise or tests based on word stress, strong and weak forms of words, word contractions, articles or monosyllabic words, then it might be a test of listening skills because you're actually talking about the sounds that the student has listened. Okay? Words are not often pronounced the way they are spelled. You would know that. And their pronunciation changes at times. You would know there are different kinds of English that we have. British English, American English, Australian English, and so on. And then come the Indian English that we have, and then different forms of Indian Englishes as well. We have different slangs coming from regional influences. So we have different pronunciation um, when we speak English. So it is not always the same. And the second language learners, when they learn some new element of a language, they have to pay conscious attention to that new aspect and think about it. I would repeat, when second language learners some new element of a new language that you're teaching them, they have to pay conscious attention to a new part of that language and then think about it as what you're doing right now. You're paying conscious attention to listening and you are thinking about it. It takes time. So don't think when the session is over, you are done with listening. I hope you keep thinking about listening because takes time to get into you. And their use of it is slow. The new element that you have introduced to your students about a language, they use it very, very slowly. But as the new element becomes more familiar, as the students get accustomed to it, they process it faster, they learn it faster with less thought. Then you stop thinking about it because you've done a lot of thinking already. But you have to think, you have to give students time to think about it, process it, and then they may start using it according to their own ability. So, some students in class 5 are able to speak certain things, whereas the same thing is spoken by students in sometimes in class 8. So this is how language learning is different from other subjects. You would expect everybody in class 6 to know what 2 into 3 is, which is 6. But you cannot expect everybody in class 6 to know how to spell, how to pronounce um, pronunciation, or how to use simple past tense in a certain way. Every student takes his or her own time to process things. So until the time it becomes automatic. So we have to wait till the time this process with the students becomes automatic. Okay, now we'll talk about a good listening task. We've thought about it. We've questioned ourselves about what a listening task is. Now, a good listening task will have active responses occurring during the listening passage. Active responses. Um, I remember because I joined late for Karamjeet sir's session. He was talking about Simon Says activity and he was giving you examples. So, this is an active response. I'm sure you would have had activities of sit and stand game in the class. So, this is a listening task. You say sit, and the students actively sit. You say stand, and the students actively stand. You say rain, you say clap, and the students respond to that. This is a good listening task. Some examples are Simon Says, which Karamjeet said, and then picture dictation. We'll do that. And then sound bites or clips from movies. As Naveen sir said, it is not the audio task is not repeated. The teacher asks for a question just after one play. So you have to repeat it. And then another would be filling missing words. As we all saw, filling missing words with contractions. I'd, you'll. Now the student has listened to someone speaking, and spoken English usually has contractions. So ask the students to fill up these contractions. What would be I'd? What would be you'll? And things like that. You could also have a follow the map activity, give them directions, and then have them mark the directions on a map in a handout. You could also have um, cards given to them which has yes, no, or not sure activities with their options with them, and then speak a couple of sentences. We did that, if you would remember, in this session only a few minutes back. Ask them to raise cards if they could follow or not follow what was being said. Speak sentences, the teacher would speak sentences, and then the students would raise their hands yes, or they would raise their cards no, or they would raise their cards not sure. And the audio should be short. It could be a couple of seconds to a minute or two, not more than that. The students would not be able to hold their attention to listening. Okay, as Naveen sir rightly said, play it several times. Don't leave it to one time play. Play the audio several times and at least twice. And it's all based on the kind of task that you're giving the students. Remember, you don't have to give a memory based task, only a listening process based task. Okay, and then you could have variety of voices in the task. You could have a dialogue or a play. For example, you could have your voice, student's voice, another teacher, or maybe some student from a younger class, or their relatives, so that they have an exposure to different kinds of voices, different kinds of sounds, and they are able to identify sounds. And please use authentic text, authentic voices, authentic clips. I'm sure you would know what is authentic. Would anyone like to venture out? Would you like to respond to what is authentic? Authentic sources, authentic text, authentic voices.
Authentic means original.
Okay, original. Could anyone of you, Hina said that, right? So would
Authentic
anyone like to
means
give,
verified.
verify? Thank you. So could you give me an example of what kind of authentic text would you give your students? Or what kind of authentic voices would you give your students? Or what kind of authentic clips would you give your students as a listening task? Any example?
And we can give them newspaper cuttings as an authentic text.
Okay, newspaper cuttings as authentic text material. Rem-
Magazines,
okay, remember we are talking about listening. So we have to keep,
ma'am, news channel, TV news channels.
okay, great. TV news channels. But what kind of TV news channels would you give to your students? Class 6, class 7, class 8, class 9, and 10? Would you want them to
I
have the
think their
same
text.
kind of?
I think their textbooks.
Okay, they're textbooks, but we have to give them
Listening,
listening.
We can read out the textbooks and they can listen.
Okay, thank you,
Moral
ma'am.
stories, ma'am.
Ma'am, audio
Okay,
of the textbook or some children's stories book.
Moral
okay,
stories
thank you. Moral stories. Okay. Meenu says rhymes.
with
Thank you,
ma'am.
Meenu.
It's about which tells them about discipline, which tells about their how to
Mm,
behave, how to
okay, well, um, I'm sure you would
teachers,
remember that
everything.
teachers on recording,
teachers
like
on
voices of
recording.
children, teachers, or some other familiar people.
Thank you, Nisha. But I hope you would remember that we are not going to test or help students with any moral practice or any kind of story memorization or any kind of language learning. We are only helping them out with listening, how to listen. We'd keep that in mind, I'm sure. So now I'd like to go about what actually listening is. How does it occur? So this is a diagram of our brain, sorry, of our ears. It is an organ which processes listening. There are three parts of our ear, an outer ear, a middle ear, and an inner ear. So outer ear receives the signals, which is the pinna, which is visible to us, the ear which is visible to us, this part. This is the outer ear. And then the middle ear, which has tympanic membrane, and it processes the sounds. It works with the sounds. And then the inner ear, which is cochlea, it actually does the listening process, the hearing part. And then it moves on to the auditory nerve. So these are part of our ear, which helps us listen. I'm talking about this because we must understand what listening actually is. How does it occur? So that when we design our tasks, when we design our activities, we know which part we are referring to. For example, when we talk about reading, we know we are uh, focusing on eyes and the brain. When we talk about writing, we know we are focusing on our hands and brain. When we talk about speaking, we know we are talking about mouth and the brain. So, in the same manner, when we talk about listening, we are actually focusing on ears and the rest of the brain, the way it goes. So, this is how the sound enters our organ system, our bodies, to the outer ear. Then it goes to the middle ear. There are some membranes, and I'm not going into details, but there are the processes of vibration identification occurring over here, and then into the inner part, which is cochlea, the roundish circular thing that you see over here with lots of lines, cochlea, where the actual listening occurs. Now, with the help of the same diagram, I'd like to talk about certain um, aspects of listening So the first one is auditory perception, which is done by any organism. Any organism does that, which is not just human beings. It is detection of a sound. So we also detect a sound. Our bodies detect the sound with the help of our ears. And then the reflexes, which in this case, since we are talking about listening, I'm not talking about any other reflex, but reaction of the body to a sound. Sometimes a sound has some kind of reaction in our bodies. We twitch our faces, we move our eyes in a certain manner, we move our hands, we jump, or we do some other thing with our hands, legs, or something else when we listen to a sound. So this is a reflex of the body when we listen to a sound. Then a sound is consciously detected or heard. We must remember that. We have to consciously hear the sound. It is consciously detected with the help of the organ that we've been given, the ear. So the detection of a sound is in two ways. Either it is the same sound that we've heard. Yes, please.
There is a break of minutes, and after
Okay.
that, because we are running out of time, so after that 10 minutes, you can continue with your session.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Sarika
so
ma'am.
much. So it is requested to all the participants that after a break of 10 minutes, we'll join again. But it is humble request, please follow the timings.